Okay, so how did you end up in Siem Reap?
Well, it was actually by accident that I ended up here. I have been in Thailand with my lady for 60 days, and I came to Point Pet to come across the border for a visa run, and that was the reason that I came to Cambodia, was just for a visa run for one day. So what I was told when I got there was, no, you have to stay in Cambodia for one night, and then you can come back. So that's what I did. I stayed in Point Pet for one night. And then when I went back to go through customs and immigration, they said, you can't return to Thailand. They said that the only way that you can return to Thailand is if you fly into Bangkok. So that's how I ended up in Siem Reap, was I was heading to the Siem Reap airport. But they give me an extradition order at Thai customs or Thai immigration, and now I'm stuck for money, right? Because my money was low, so now I'm stuck for money, and now I'm stuck in Siem Reap, and that's how I got here.
So you're from Canada, yes?
Yes, I am.
How did you first end up in Southeast Asia?
Originally, I ended up in Southeast Asia because I was working for an international investment group, and what we did was we were a company that studied the gray areas of foreign tax laws and the Canadian Tax Act. And the reason that we did this was because we wanted to move untaxed Canadian dollars out of Canada for our investors. So 1986 was my first trip, and I landed in Thailand, in Pattaya, Thailand actually was one of the places I visited. I worked out of Bangkok for a little bit. Two beautiful young ladies sitting across from me, and one of them came over and talked to me, and she said, you like my girlfriend? You like the way she looks? And I said, well, yeah, she's beautiful, she's stunning. Well, you sleep with her. She want to have Phalang baby. Well, I laughed, of course, because, like, what, you're kidding me, right? I didn't believe it for a minute. And no, they were very serious. They thought that if they were impregnated by a white man, that they would have a white baby. And in 1986, at that time, if they did produce a white baby, their whole village would look after them. And they were taken care of for life at that point. So that was my first experience in Thailand and over in Asia.
Tell us what happened on your trip in Vietnam.
My trip in Vietnam. I've had some amazing experiences. What relation did you want me to refer to?
So what happened on your boat ride?
On my boat ride?
Yeah.
Down the
Mekong
Mekong
River.
Delta?
Yes.
Oh man. All I did was, it was a tour boat, okay? And we were out having a tour, and there's tourists on board. And we were the first boat to go down, and there was another tour boat behind us a little ways. And out of nowhere, I got shot by a sniper and took a bullet in the hip.
Wow.
And I mean, it didn't damage me permanently or anything. They got the bullet out. I was all okay. It was totally by surprise. But what I was told later about that was that they were still fighting the Vietnam War back in the jungles of Vietnam. They didn't even know the war was over.
And what year was that?
That was 1989. 1989, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, but they thought the war was still going on back in the jungles of Vietnam. They had no idea it was over. So, yeah, it's, I've had an amazing life. I really have,
Yeah. But that wasn't the only time you were shot, was it?
No, it wasn't actually. I've been shot twice. and lived to tell about it, luckily, right?
Yeah.
The second time that I was shot was actually in Los Angeles. I was living there, and my wife and I walked outside of a building, and there was a man beating a woman, and I can't tolerate that at all, right? I had to step in, and so I stepped in and I peeled him off of her from beating her, and I threw him aside, right? And then I was gonna lay a licking on him, quite honestly, because I was kind of angry, right?
Yeah.
You're beating a woman, you don't do that, not in my book, okay? So I went to lay a licking on him, and he pulled a 38 and shot me here, and he got a bullet right there.
Wow.
So I felt the bullet hit, but the anger was in me to the point at that I felt it. I went back with it, and I said, no way. So he was shocked that I didn't go down. So I grabbed the gun from him, and I had the butt of the gun, and I was beating him with the butt of his own gun. And that's when the police arrived. And the police saw me with the gun, and there was blood everywhere, on her, on me, on him. And it was like the police they drew weapons on me. It was like, drop the gun. So I threw the gun. It landed about 5 feet from me, right? And they were taking me down. And his woman said, that man just saved my life. Please don't hurt him. So then one of the police officers looked, and I had a white shirt on, and I was bleeding, filling up the white shirt with red blood. And he says, you've been shot. And I said, yeah, I have. So that was my second experience. It went in here, and it came out my armpit.
Right. So that was the second time, not the first time.
That was the second time I was shot.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. So you also spent some time in the Navy?
No.
Not the Navy?
No. I was never military.
Okay.
Right. I was educated at an early age in university. I got an MBA in university. And during the time that I was doing that, my older sister, she was living with this guy out of Vancouver. And he was quite an amazing guy. His name's Dan Cowan. And he was known back then as Dan Tolan because he was a runaway from the Vietnam War. He left the United States and came to Canada to get away from being put into the war. So Cooper, and it was the Welcome to My Nightmare tour, right? And that started a whole chain of events that happened through the course of my life. That chain of events was that we got very, very popular. He put 7 of us together, and we got very popular to do production for major concerts in North America. So I'm doing my university, but I'm also traveling throughout North America as they said that I was the associate producer. Second in line, Dan was the producer, that I was the associate producer. But don't take that too seriously, because associate producer means to do all the shit work nobody else wants to do, right? So the riders, it says on the riders what's got to be in every dressing room, what's got to be in the green room for refreshments, the roadies, hot meal, the limousine service, the hotel service, being the liaison between the band and the band. The story because it's so neat, right? I go to the airport, we go pick up stones. I'm in charge of the 6 limousines. We get back to the hotel in downtown Toronto. We get all the guys and girls, ladies, to their rooms, right? And his road manager, Mickey Mandel is his name. His road manager comes down and he says, Doug, where's Mick? I said, I just took him up to his room like 20 minutes ago. And he goes, he's not there. right? And it was like, well, what do you mean he's not there? He says, are all the cars here? So I went out, counted, yeah, I got all 6 limousines there. Everything's good, we're all good. He's got to be in the hotel. Well, as it turns out, we had the OPP of Toronto out looking for Mick Jagger because we Jagger rolls in a taxi. And he steps out of the taxi, and the first thing he sees is me, and he goes, Dougie, what are you doing? I says, what did you do to it? Where have you, what? Like, oh, the OPP are looking for you. What are you doing? And he goes, oh, you can't believe my day. He says, I went down to Skid Row, and he says, I was in a dirty little pub shooting pool with the bums. And he says, I've been telling them all day that I'm Mick Jagger, but they wouldn't believe me. He says, I had the most amazing day, right? Well, it's Mickey, his road manager. Yeah. Oh man, he came and, oh my God, you're here. And it was just an amazing experience. Mickey was up, what happened? Where you been? Why'd you do this to us? But it was quite a day, that day was, yeah.
Wow.
Pretty amazing day, yeah. So I guess I'm known, probably not known, but yeah, I was one of the guys responsible for losing Mick Jagger in Toronto.
That's quite a thing.
I got to work with some remarkable people. The other associations in my family from one of my older sisters, she was, her and her husband were friends with a person by the name of Terry Banks. Terry and Nevis Banks. That was Tommy Banks' brother. So we, as a young man, I was taken to Tommy's house for a party one time. Not a party, it was a Saturday afternoon, okay? And it wasn't a party, it was just Terry and Nevis were there, and Diane and Barry wanted to go see them, and they were at Tommy Banks' house. So I walk into the house, and there's this tall, skinny, ugly girl with big horn-rimmed glasses standing at the end of Tommy's piano singing. And when she was like 16 years old, and when she sang, I got shivers. I mean, her voice was, and she was just this ugly little tall, no breasts, like, that was Celine Dion.
Wow. Oh my God.
So I did have the opportunity to work with her and Eddie, her husband, about 5 different times through the course of my life. But it's interesting how things happen.
Yeah.
About 3 weeks after that, no, it would have been about a month and a half after that, we were back at Tommy Banks' house. Now, the way that the family, the Bankses, got fame was their mother used to work a show called Siesta Cinema on the local channel, and it was the afternoon movie channel. A beautiful lady with a big blonde, high hairdo and whatnot. And that's where they got famous, right, where they started to be famous. Well, so it was about 3 weeks, maybe a little more. I can't remember the exact timing of it. I was back in Tommy's house. Now, he's an interesting man. I gotta say that. I don't know if he's gay or not. Didn't mean anything to me one way or another, but there's a kid with all pimples all over his face playing the piano. And I remember walking into the house and sitting at the bar that's just away from the grand piano, and there's Tommy standing over this kid playing piano, and he was an amazing pianist, and he was singing as well. That turned out to be Bryan Adams.
Oh God.
So I knew Bryan Adams when he was 14 years old. I knew
Wow.
Celine Dion when she was 16.
Yeah.
Plus, through my brother-in-law, they weren't married with my sister. They had a child, her first son together. I got to work with some of the most amazing people.
Yeah.
The Rolling Stones is one of the biggest that I remember. I did 38 nights with the Eagles. We had a 48-day road trip, and we did 38 performances in 48 days. So I got to work with them and every Canadian artist that you could probably name. First time I worked with Colin James, he was 17 years old, and we had him working in Edmonton in a bar. And the police came rolling in and said, "You can't have this kid working in the bar." But he had got one set in, right? So he gets one set in, and of course, he was magnificent, right? I mean, he lit the audience up like you couldn't believe. So I remember the police officer talking to my brother-in-law, Dan, at this side of the stage going, "You can't have this kid performing here, he's underage," right? And Dan's going, "Yes, I totally agree with you. I said this from the beginning. I totally agree with you. We shouldn't be doing this." But he says, Dan said to the cop, he says, "Why are you telling me this? Go tell them." And he pointed to the audience. The cop turned around and looked at the audience and went, "You get him out of here as soon as they said us." So he ended up, that was the first time I worked with Colin James. It was, yeah, that was part of a really great life. My life has had some amazing experiences.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
I've been so fortunate to have lived this life, the life that I walk, the path I've walked in my life. I've got to do such versatile things in my life, such different things. From having a heart attack at 32 as an international investment consultant to my birth name. My birth name is actually Sir Walter Douglas Hodgson.
Oh yeah, there you go.
It's interesting that my great-grandfather owned the Rock Brick Company of London, England. It was the largest brick company in the entire world at that point. And he was a lord. Now, my mother decided at my birth that the family name should be carried forward. And that was how I ended up with the name. But it means that my birth certificate's 8 pages long because it had to be approved by the Queen of England for me to carry the family name on. So only in title, only in name. And I don't really like the English people very much. I spent a lot of time there, but they're too pompous for me, right? I'm a common man, a blue-collar worker, you know. I live in Canada, one of the greatest nations on earth, you know, so I've never really associated with that title, and I would prefer not to.
So tell us about the movie you were involved with.
Actually, I wasn't involved with the movie at all. What happened, interesting story, was there was a boat called, a ship called the Bark Endeavour. Now, the Bark Endeavour originally landed in Sooke, the town I lived in on Vancouver Island, and it was a replica boat. The original Bark Endeavour was actually a coal ship that ran up and down the Thames. So when Captain Vancouver landed, he landed in the Bark Endeavour, and he landed in Sooke on Vancouver Island the first time. When they had landed, I had changed my careers. I had that heart attack, I was done. My wife moved me to Vancouver Island to get me out of the business. And so what I did was, I started driving a bus called the Sooke Seniors Activity Bus, a little white airporter bus, taking care of little white hairs, taking them out for groceries, taking road trips, doing all kinds of really cool stuff. The Connor Tulip Festival and Skagit Valley and that kind of thing. All the operas we went to. So yeah, I started driving that bus for them, and what happened was the Bark Endeavour landed, and they had a key buckle, and I call it a key buckle, and it's a big pulley system, right, with 5 lines on it, right. They had 18 miles of rope on that boat, right. So what happened was they had broken the key buckle, and when they landed in Sooke, they were asking the people of Sooke, like, is there anybody who can fix this for us? And they said, there's only one guy, and that's Doug. You got to go talk to him. Now, I'm a pot-throwing hippie at this time, right? And smoking my pot and living my life, right, at peace. And I get these people roll up on me, right? And they roll into the driveway, and I thought, first of all, I thought I was busted. Because I had 32 plants in the shed at the time. But no, they brought this key buckle to me, and they said, we're from the Bark Endeavour. I said, oh, yeah, the boat just landed. Yeah, the tall ship. Yeah. It's where we originally landed in 1732, I think they said was the year that. So they said, but we've broken this, and we've been told by people of your town that you are the guy that can fix this for us. Well, I looked at it and it was rusty and it was old and the wood was already cracked all over one. I said, you know what? I can't fix it. I'm gonna make one for you. Well, the guy laughed at me. He says, you're gonna make one. I says, yeah, and we better make it out of hardwood, right? Because we want it to have some life. So I spent a week making it. So after I got done to the exact item that he had given me, I did an exact duplicate of it. And we get down to the ship and they're flying in there. He says, you know, we've got a bit of a problem. We got a bit of a leak downstairs in the engine room. And what had happened was all boats at that point then had to have engines in them, okay? Because you were not considered internationally seaworthy unless you had an engine, right? So the original Bark Endeavour, they had put an engine in with a prop. So it was a replica boat out of Australia. So they said, we got a problem, we got a leak downstairs. Well, I went and took a look downstairs and two of the bearings had worn out on the shaft. And the vibration of it was we're going to give it a whirl, right? Well, I replaced the 4 bearings for them, got the shaft running straight, got it running clean and whatnot. Well, at that point, they said, okay, they were transporting troubled youth out of Australia, and that's where the ship was based. Yeah. And they would take 15 troubled youth at a time and travel the world with them. They said, listen, we want you to come with us. And we were heading for Barbados. And I said, well, I got to talk to my wife, right? And it's like she's going to freak. And my wife said, you know what, this will be an amazing experience for you. You must do this. So I said, okay, and they made me coxswain. And I shouldn't have been the coxswain, but I had to have other duties besides repairing things. So in order to get the children to have respect for me and listen to what I was saying to them, they made me coxswain. And that's how I ended up on the Bark Endeavour when it actually, when we lost 18. Yeah, and I was in the bird's nest up above, and I was one of 11 who lived. So you never know what's going to happen in your life. You know, you get these interesting things that happen. Can you imagine? I was an international investment consultant, traveled the world around globally 9 times, had a heart attack, ended up on Vancouver Island.
So that was all before you became a hippie?
Yeah, I was very straight-laced, right? I have an MBA, a Master's of Business Administration, which took me 5 years to get. I'm not that smart. But, yeah, so... bad place, right?
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure worse things have happened to you.
I'm sure they have.
Obviously. You've been shot twice.
Well, yeah, you know, you don't, it's not like you're looking for trouble.
No.
Right? I'm a very peaceful man, right? I just do not, I will not allow, I cannot stand idly by and watch a man hit a woman.
Yeah.
Right? I just can't do it. I'm slight of frame, I'm slight of body, I'm not a fighter, I'm a lover, but I cannot stand by idly and watch that happen. So yeah, that's what caused that to happen,
Yeah.
was because I couldn't stand idly by. The thing that happened to the Mekong Delta on the tour boat was sheer accident, right? I mean, nobody on the tour company or tour boat had that happen before, and they haven't had it happen since. It was a one in a, but the Vietnamese government were really good to me. I had no medical expenses from that at all. I had the surgery, removed the bullet from my hip. They paid for everything, right? Everything. And the tour company didn't pay for a thing. The Vietnamese government did. Quite amazing to me. I thought I was in a lot of trouble, and how am I going to get the money, right? So,
Well,
no,
it just goes to show you things do work out.
they always will.
Yeah.
Trust, have faith, believe in yourself, right?
Definitely.
Believe in yourself.
Yeah.
Follow that dream. Always. Grab the dream, hold it, and follow it. Because it'll lead you to a better life every time you do.
I think that's a great message to end on. Thanks so much for sharing your
Well,
story.
thank you so much for accepting my story. I appreciate the time. Bye.